What's up, knife freaks? Okay, so I decided I want to start doing a video series. We're going to try to do a weekly video series for YouTube, and we're going to call it Flashback Fridays. All right. I realize that at this point, we've been in the game long enough that a lot of you guys that are our current customers and supporters don't necessarily know all the history of how we got to the point that we're at now. And maybe you know us completely or mostly for our production line and all the stuff that we're doing now. So I wanted to go in, and there's bits and pieces of the story out there from different interviews that I've done with different dealers and different reviewers and stuff like that. But I just wanted to have something kind of documented here on our channel that would kind of give the history as we go along of what we've done. We can talk about some of the stuff we've done, show some of the past work and stuff like that. So let's dive into it today. So real quick, and those of you that have heard this on other places, just bear with me. But this got started back in about 2008. I'd always loved knives. I honestly cannot remember ever being without a knife. I'm sure at some point I was young enough that I didn't have one, but I basically had knives as long as I can remember. So just been pretty much obsessed with them my whole life. So I also come from a family where my dad did a lot of woodworking, crafts, do-it-yourself. My mom did sewing and all kinds of crafts and stuff. It was just kind of, and we didn't have a lot of money, so it was just kind of natural that you, if you could, you try to do something yourself. So I've tried my hand at all kinds of stuff. Never was really that good at too much of it. So thank God I found knives. So fast forward, we get to that. I'm old enough, guys, that I was around a good percentage of my life was pre-internet. So I didn't have enough of a desire, I guess, for knife making. Nothing ever really, I guess I didn't really know that people, individuals actually made knives like in their garages and stuff. If I stopped and thought about it, I probably would have, figured out that maybe some people did, but I was just, I just knew of the normal knives you see at the store. I wasn't really at all in the custom knife world or frame of mind. So, like I said, fast forward then to around 2008. Actually, it's probably around 2006, 2007 when I first started diving down the rabbit hole, and I found one of the first knives that I remember finding that really caught my attention and started me down this path was some of Strider knives, fixed blades. So I saw those. I ended up doing research on those. There was a forum that they were real big on at the time called the Badlands Forum. I ended up getting on there, and from there finding some other forums. Ultimately, to the one that I was most active on was the Usual Suspects Network. So anyway, that sent me down the rabbit hole of seeing that, hey, like, guys are actually posting stuff that they're doing, like in their garage or their little shop at their house. Like, they're actually making these knives, and like anybody can do this. And like, the information was there. Like, they were telling what kind of grinders they were using and like what kind of belts they were using. They were telling their techniques. And so I was like, well, this is something I could do, or I want to try to do. So took a little time. That all kind of marinated for a while. We ended up moving into a new house, built a shop immediately just because I'm a country guy. I needed a shop, somewhere to tinker and mess with stuff or whatever, have some storage. So had the shop. And not long after that, I was like, okay, so I need to do something in my new shop. So, like, I think I'm going to try to make a knife. So I picked up this little, essentially like a Harbor Freight. I think it's a 6x48 or something like that. It's like the, I don't think mine tilted up. It was the one that had like a flat 4-inch belt that goes around, and then it's got a disc on the side. Anyway, not at all what you need for knife making, but I had a piece of steel. I'm pretty sure it was mild steel at the time. I didn't even know what I was doing as far as what types of steel to use. I went back there. Actually, me and my son Luke went back there. I was like, hey, let's go try to make a knife. And we spent, I don't know how long, because that thing was super underpowered. We had by no means right belts for it, anything like that. But ended up making something that roughly resembled the shape of a knife. So that was like, that was pretty cool. It actually worked. It sucks doing it on that grinder, but and played around with a few more on that. Played around with some heat treating, again, being so naive and jumping into it without getting all my ducks in a row. I think I actually tried to heat treat some mild steel and everything else in the very beginning before I realized that I didn't even have the right kind of steel. So jump forward a little bit, and I decided that I needed an actual grinder if I was going to do this. So I ended up, there was a plan, it may still be around. USA Knife Maker used to sell us some plans for the no weld knife grinder, and it was basically a bolt together version of a knife grinder that you could do. And I kind of took that and made my own version of it, made a bunch of tweaks. I had, I think, a 4x6 wooden block that was cut off one of the posts from my shop. That was kind of the base of it. I had a little bench grinder that was probably like a 1/3 horsepower or something, just a small little crappy bench grinder. I bolted an upright to it. I think I did buy an idler wheel, was the only actual real grinder part that I bought, because I couldn't figure out a way to source that otherwise. Bought an idler wheel and made a very rough, I don't even remember exactly how I did it, but some kind of a rough tracking system on it. And I actually found a plastic plastic lawnmower wheel at Lowe's that I put on the grinder that was my drive wheel. It would actually fit on the arbor of the grinder. So that was my drive wheel, and this pieced together Franken grinder that was just god awful ugly. But I think the tension on it was made by either a bungee cord or something like that. It might have had an actual spring, but anyway, it was ugly, and like most people wouldn't even attempt probably to grind knives on it. But I commenced to make hundreds of knives on that thing, and started out, treated it pretty much like a business from the get-go, because truth be told, I could have afforded to save up a little bit and buy myself an actual grinder, but I wasn't willing to invest our family budget into a hobby for myself like that. I already had enough other hobbies at the time, hunting and fishing and stuff, so they're all expensive. So I treated it like a business from the beginning, and as I made a few knives and got a few good enough, they were like some little kiridashis and stuff in the beginning, where I think the kind of first kind of stuff that I started selling. And as I would sell some, I would take the money, I would reinvest it. But I kept doing, I kept grinding on that Franken grinder for, I don't remember how long it was. It had to be at least a year, I would say, maybe longer than that. I ground, I know, at least hundreds of knives on there, all the way up to the point that I was making, started off, like I said, little kiridashis and stuff, and then some little small belt knives, and kept going up from there. And then I designed this great big chopper, and I started making those on there. And this thing, like I said, was so crazy underpowered that I'd be grinding these big choppers out of like 1/4 inch steel, and I would bog down constantly. So I just had to keep kind of slowing down, letting off pressure. It would take forever to grind one of these things. So I finally broke down and saved up enough money from selling all my other little stuff and selling some of those choppers that I was taking forever to grind. I finally got those, saved up enough money from those that I bought a KMG. And then I was off to the races then. I had made a little do-it-yourself out of some fire bricks. I had made like a little oven, basically some fire bricks stacked up with a hole through them with a propane torch blowing in there. Heat treated who knows how many knives with that. And then, let's see, this is way before folders. We'll get into folders in another episode down the road. So was learning all that, and this is actually, I don't have that many knives from back in the really early stages, but this is one of the choppers that I was talking about. As you can see, it's kind of stained and well used. This is out of 1095. I pretty quickly settled on using 1095 because I love blades with hamons on them. I don't know how you actually say it. That's my redneck version of saying it, so bear with me. So I would do the clay on the spine of the blade for heat treat, and I was doing this on like from little kiridashis all the way up to these great big choppers and stuff. And so that was the vast majority of what I did. Almost everything that I did at that time, I heat treated with clay and then put a hamon on them. So tons and tons of time polishing blades and that kind of stuff. So then kept going with that until I eventually started getting into the folders. But tons and tons and tons of fixed blades, mostly with, like I said, with hamons, that kind of stuff. I did a very few out of stainless and a couple other steels, but most of them at the time were 1095. I ended up getting a hold of some W2 and got that. At the time, you couldn't get W2 in bar stock. You could only get it in round stock. And then, thank goodness, I think it was New Jersey Steel Baron was able to source some and start carrying it in bar stock. And so that helped a lot. Did some in W2 as well. So that's pretty much kind of how it started. Just had the bug. found out that it was possible to do it, and off we went and haven't looked back since. So next week we'll try to keep these not too long. So next week I'll get some more stuff going with talk about the folders and try to show off some more of the stuff from back in those early days. But I appreciate you guys. Feel free to drop questions and stuff down in the comments. And if you see me get run behind and not drop an episode one week, feel free to nudge me. But I'm going to try my best to try to get going at least for a little while here till we kind of get up to current times. I want to try to do a few weeks worth of some history and talking about different parts of the journey that we've been on here. So we greatly appreciate you guys. Could not have gone from then to now without all of you guys, and I know some of you out there have been with me since the very beginning, all the way back there from the crappy little stuff I was making back then. So greatly appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.